Thank you for tuning in to Androna Talks Radio, gathering as one in our sovereign truth from a galactic perspective, exploring our world with new ideas, knowledge, and a promise of a better future. Galactic discussions for galactic-minded people. Androna Talks.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us today on Androna Talks Radio. I have Chris here, and we're going to do another update of the Yellow Vests in France, and whether it's Paris or around France, and the impact that it has on French people and the world. So, hello, Chris. How are you today?
Hi, Jessica. I'm very excited to be here. I'm great. What about you?
Pretty good. Been here and there and traveling a bit according to the work that I've committed to do and making sure that things are safe and as much as I can. We've discovered quite a few things that have been going on in France for a while, and there's, definitely, some strong belief systems and other things that exist there, have existed there for a very long time. But I think that, the shifts and the changes of what's happening in the world, it's just creating, all sorts of different anomalies, and things need to be looked at and reviewed. But I think for the most part, there's probably some new activity, because some of the things that aren't working, I think they continue to try different tactics to make things change and to go in their direction. But I know that there was the fire in Notre Dame was the exact day when Macron was supposed to give a speech and tell the people exactly, how he was going to assist. And because of the fire, that didn't happen. So he finally did his speech. Is that correct?
Yes, finally did it a week later, after spending a whole week, having an emergency crisis meeting, with different, I guess, with his people, but also with other countries, trying to have a lot of money. And they really raised more than $1 billion in a week. It's kind of insulting for, French people, even if they, most of them, they want to see the cathedral rebuilt. But, the whole thing is too fast. He's planning to build that cathedral in 5 years, which is impossible. They took them 200 years to build. But we know there is another agenda behind it. I'm going to talk about that in a little later in this report. But yeah, he did his speech last week, Thursday. Mm-hmm. And of course, it was a flop. It was the art of speaking 2 hours using beautiful formulas that were empty of any sense, any answers, and literally left even the journalists after, that were praising him for so long, being like, okay, he just spoke for 2 hours, but nothing is said. Nothing. No, literally, it's an art that they learn in that school called ENA. It's a school for all the politicians go to that school pretty much if you want to be on the top level. And they literally learn how to, instead of to say, I love you, they will say, well, I have some feelings that I can identify as, it takes like 5 sentences, and it's still, you don't know what they really mean. That's exactly what happened. 2 hours. It was so exciting that all the people in front of him, all the journalists, all his ministers were caught asleep. It's ridiculous. You see the picture, it's so funny. So anyway, he wanted to have that presidential posture. He wanted to pretend to be like Charles de Gaulle, which was, a president of France after the Second World War. I mean, you can see he's trying everything to try to make himself like he knows what he's doing and he's bringing answer, he's in control. But all you can feel is the complete opposite. So now, of course, after that debate, after that speech, all the Yellow Vests had a strong feeling that there will be no answers, and it was a big hoax. These 3 months of great debate, it was just a way for him to campaign for the European elections, without having. Normally, you're not supposed to campaign a month before the elections, so he got 3 months additional to that, right? Paid by the French people, trying to save his program, to save Europe and his program. He want to be the new president of the European Community. That's his plan. But anyway, it didn't really work, and he knew that he couldn't lie too long. So, of course, when the cathedral burned, well, it was definitely very, very strange that it happened literally an hour before his supposedly incredible speech is going to answer all the questions. In the meantime, when that happened, he has the opportunity to make some serious deals with the EU and pretty much create some deals that will create more anchor, where France will be more anchored and deeply anchored with the European community and be completely depending on the European community. And I'm talking about financial deals, right? Most of the money came from some very rich people in France that were just using that opportunity so that when they sent $200 million, it seems amazing, that they have a good heart. It has nothing to do with that. They just did that because they will not have to pay taxes on that amount of money. It's deductible. So it's one of the tricks. And then the EU obviously has put a lot of money into that $1 billion too. And therefore, they don't give money for nothing. You have to give something in exchange, and with Macron, we know it's definitely sovereignty of France. So what happened after that? So last week was the 23rd of April, which was every month now they have announced that they're going to do a national gathering in Paris, and it was pretty intense, but in the same time, no black blocs, which was funny. The last 3 weeks, no black blocs, barely.
So
none.
yeah, can you define? Can you tell people what the black blocs are again?
Okay, there are different factions of them, but mainly it's a group of young people that call themselves, and it's connected to Antifa. Antifa and black blocs are pretty much the same thing. Black blocs come from Germany, and they are anti-fascists, but their flag is the exact same flag that the brown youth, we call it the brown vest in Germany in the 30s, were wearing at the time. They had that flag with that. It's a specific flag. If you go online, you will see the Antifa flag and the Nazi flag. And it's exactly those guys in the 30s. They were pretty much destroying, the shops of all the Jewish community. They were very violent, and supposedly they were against fascism, but they are the tool used by those who are literally the fascists. So the whole thing is not anti-fascist; it's really fascist. So, but most of them have no idea. They have this idea of we need to have a free country, a free world with no superpower, no this, no that. But in the same time, the only way they know is violence. And most of these young kids, they're all dressed in black, and they have these masks, and all they do is to break all the symbols of capitalism, right? But they don't know anything else than that. And we know that in France, so that's the Antifa. They're pretty much everywhere, even in the US. And most of them, at least in the US, and we know in Europe too, are paid by Soros and his open society organization, because they are creating unrest. They're creating a situation where suddenly the government have the perfect answer, which is we need to bring more police. We need to, to create new bills against any type of violence. Therefore, now we can arrest everyone just on suspicion that you might go to a protest and you might be violent. Therefore, we can arrest you and put you in jail. So all that is it's part of the whole system and the whole game plan they have. So there was a big one, I think it was in March, that there were 2,000 of them, and the French government knew it a month before, because of course they have a surveillance on all the multimedia, Twitter, Facebook, and all the different system they use. They know exactly where they would gather, how many they would be, who they were, where they were coming from. They knew the whole thing. And some of the officers of the police said that they got ordered when these black blocs. Suddenly there was, I was telling you in the past that they had all these. The police was stopping people before they were even reaching the protest, and they were, checking out everything, their bags, and everything, right? Some controls, and it was impossible pretty much to reach the protest with your yellow vest or any saline water for your eyes or even a paper mask. And that day, suddenly, no control. That is very strange. Suddenly, we realized that when these kids are burning some specific symbolic places, the police had ordered to not move. And when they were moving, they were never arresting the black blocs. They were arresting the yellow vest. So now there is some proof by some newspaper, made some investigation that obviously not only the government know about them, but pretty much use them. Because
I was going to say that they somehow seem to get a pass, and it's either they're afraid of them because they're an organization, or they're actually covertly working with them. I mean, that seems to be the...
And all these kids, most of the time, are children from rich family, family that are not
entitled,
the ones that are in the street. Oh, completely entitled. So, which is funny because they fight supposedly fascism and capitalism, but they are living in it every day, right? Because they're raised in those families. So that was in March. Then in April, the 23rd, I guess, of April, was last week, last Saturday. Same thing, huge gathering. Police was pretty quiet. There were, some tear gas and maybe one or two flashballs, but not too much wounded, and no black blocs. Well, guess what? Today, there were thousands of them. Oh my God. I mean, and they literally...
It's because it's the first. Today is
it's the 1st of May. It's
1st of May.
Yeah, it's the day of the Socialist Day in Europe.
Okay, so that they deliberately the Yellow Vests had intended on doing some kind of protesting today then, because it was the first.
It was the first. They knew that the unions normally always protest on the 1st of May. But it's not like violent protest. They just go in the street, thousands of people.
Right.
So they gather.
And the government knew that they would as well. So this was a large gathering.
Oh, it was a huge gathering from everywhere in France. The unions, all the Yellow Vests, even those who normally don't go to protest, all the students. And they were afraid also that the people from the projects all around Paris that, are pretty much experiencing what the Yellow Vests are experiencing now with the flashball and the tear gas. They're experiencing that for the last 20 years, but nobody talked about that. They were afraid that those kids would come as well, since Macron in his speech literally said that he needs to fight, and literally connected to the Notre Dame, that now he made a clear decision that he's going to fight the all the Islamic, but the politic aspect of this of Islam. And so there's a lot of Muslim people in this project, and they're very, very, very wild. I mean, they were afraid that they would come too, and maybe they were there. Suddenly, these kids realize, wait a minute, the Yellow Vests are like us. I mean, they finally understand what they go through. We go through for the last 20 years. So maybe we should, unite with them. And that was the biggest fear of the Ministry of Interior, the Castaner, which is the Minister of the Interior, because he realized that if that's happening, it's going to be chaos. So what they were doing, it's that they were talking in the news a few weeks before, oh my God, it's going to be horrible, it's going to be there, it's going to be bloody, it's going to be violent. And while the media are bombarding that, on the news, there are two effects that they are trying to reach. One is they want the yellow vest to be afraid to come, because there will be obviously a lot of violence. Well, the opposite happened. And the second thing, it gives them also now a legitimacy to bring even double the police that they had before, and to be extremely violent. So it's exactly what happened today. I was watching news, and in the first weeks I saw the protests in France. The first 3 Saturday, I was shocked, because I never saw any protests in France like that ever. I mean, it was reaching an intensity that's not known in 30 years, since '68.
All right, so that it's not just Paris, you said, and it's moving to other cities.
Right. No, every city is in France, because not everyone has the money to go to Paris, right? So in every city, they started to organize these huge protests, and you have pretty much 4 or 5 main cities, but all the smaller cities have the same. They have protests. The numbers are 300, 400,000 people in the whole France. Even in the media says 10,000. Okay. But the main cities are Paris, of course, that's the core where the government is. But then you have Bordeaux, which is a huge city in southwest of France. And then there it's pretty violent. The police is very violent there, and the people are really, the yellow vests are very intense and determined over there. Then you have Toulouse, which is south of France, but in the middle, between east and west coast. And then you have Marseille, which is on the east coast, south of France. So you have these 4 cities, and Lille near the north of Belgium. But these are pretty much the cities where it's very intense as in Paris, even if it's on a smaller scale. But today I was watching the Paris one, and yeah, there was a lot of people and a lot of tear gas, pretty much like usual, which is intense, by the way. But the most shocking for me was Toulouse, because Toulouse is a city that's, the yellow vests over there are very determined, and the police always have been pretty brutal. But today I've never seen that. And after 25 weekends of watching that every day, right, every time it happens, you kind of build a thick skin. I don't say you're insensitive, but you get not used to it, but you're less shocked by it, I would say. Today, my stomach was turning. I mean, I felt nauseous. There was even a moment I felt I wanted to cry, because it was humanly so hard to see. What happened is that they literally have doubled, tripled the amount of police in the street, and they had a clear order, obviously, to not let them move around, not let them gather. And so normally when they send tear gas, they send like, you hear them shooting like 5, 6 capsules, right? And then you see them flying, and then you see the gas, and people most of the time, disperse, right? Well, here you could hear there was a moment I was counting, there was around 20, 30, 40 in a minute. And there were so many of them, you couldn't see anything. And the people were stuck because they closed all the streets. So there is no way to go anywhere. You're completely stuck. There was even an American lady, a news, a reporter there, and I could hear her. I could understand what she was saying, of course. And she was saying, "Oh my God, they blocked all the streets. We have no way to get out, and now they're bombarding us with tear gas and flashballs, literally like." Wow. Like you do in a fair, when you shoot on something to I mean, it was just.
You mean like a target practice or something?
Oh, yeah. The intensity was 50 times what I've seen in any other protest. The violence of the police. Now they are not only arresting yellow vests just because they are beating up on the street medics, which are just people that worked most of the time in hospital or firemen or things like that. They wear a white T-shirt with a red cross on it, and most of the time they're there just to help whoever is wounded. And they go there, freely. They bring their own, how you call that, band-aids, and to give at least the first treatment when someone loses an eye or have a flashball in the face or whatever. They even help the police when they are wounded. Well, these today was insane. They were parking them like animals. They were shooting them with flashballs, tear gas, arresting them. News, even cameramen from news, from some news channels got arrested, beat up. I mean, I was watching that. I'm like, okay, what country is this? Am I watching France here, or is this Venezuela? I mean,
Wow.
I've seen what happened in Venezuela. Of course, now the army is shooting on people with real guns, but they're not using.
I mean, no, those are, direct
This is
dictatorship.
different. Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
but you're wondering, what the heck's going on? I mean, is this like this strange, attack on civilians?
That's
something that I never thought that I would see in my lifetime, or in any lifetime. It just, there's always been nations that have done this, and it's shocking. It's like, are you guys human or what? I mean, why would you need to abuse people like that, other than you're definitely doing something wrong? If you were there supporting the people in leadership, then no one would be rebelling. It's clear the people are being oppressed. I know that it's difficult. Some nations don't know how to create revenue that supports their system. But there is a difference between an understanding and rulers that live in extreme excess and allow everyone else to suffer. And those are usually these small nations that just don't want to listen to anyone else, and they get these egocentric, people, I don't even know if I want to call them. I think they're, usually taken over by some kind of entity. And there's no soul, there's no consciousness, and they act that way. But France has always had a sense of purpose. In some of the European nations, because it's been generational, and they've taken pride in what's been going on in their nation, and usually the leaders have a sense of dignity of some sort. No one's perfect, of course, but to this level, this is the part that's shocking. It's almost like, getting the the step parent that comes in and just starts brutalizing all, everyone's kids.
It's exactly that, because if they were,
or a stepmom, I could say. Well, it can go either way.
In the other protest, you could see the police standing there, and then there were some black blocs or some yellow vests throwing stones, bottles, and after a while, of course, they have orders to go for it, and tear gas and flashball and whatever to disperse the crowd. Here it's a complete different thing. The people were nicely walking, nothing, no violence, nothing. The violence from the police is out of scale. I've never seen that. They were like animals, literally animals.
They probably figured no one's going to, well, you wonder if they're programmed, if they're completely mind controlled, and because like you said, this is not normal. It's different if you're in hand-to-hand combat and you have, some kind of adrenaline flowing because your life is literally in danger. But if your life is not in danger, to have that degree of aggression towards non-armed individuals, it's making an enormous statement about the lack of consciousness, the lack of emotion, severe levels of abuse, and even murder, intentions of murder. So I don't know where this is coming from, and I know Macron needs to line his pocket a little bit more, because he probably needs more money. So he's not giving in to this whole process of lowering, getting the taxes down to a normal place, because who knows, maybe he needs a new sports car to justify who he is, or make a statement of his level of importance to the other leaders of the EU. But at this point, whatever the agenda is, and hey, there could even be a level of where somebody, the EU, is pressuring him and telling him he needs to get control or something. But
that's exactly that.
But he's not. then use your brain and do something to at least pacify the people a bit, at least give them something where they can have not a substandard living, but where they can actually have a living wage. And maybe he has to, he needs to cut back on some of his excessive, I don't know, his wine cellar or whatever he puts his money into. So,
well, what happened here is that in 2000, the French people in 2003, no, 5, I think. Was it? Well, I don't remember the date, but I think that 2005 they had a referendum asking if the French people wanted to be part of the EU, and 55% of the French people said no, we don't. So it took 3 years for them to go to Lisbon in Portugal, and there they made a treaty called the Lisbon Treaty, where they literally went against the will of the French people and went deeper in the European Community process against the will of the French people.
And who did this?
There was a president at the time, I think it was Sarkozy. So the French people discovered that only a few years later. So now they start to discover everything that was done these last 40 years. When, most of the French people thought, well, the government is doing the best for us, and, we vote, and, every 5 years there is a new president promises this and this and this, we're going to change the EU, we're going to make it better. And the problem is that this time with a yellow vest, when before the government could give a little here, a little there, and everybody was going back to their home, to their home, and, it was good. It's not happening now, because people know. The veil of illusion, deceptions, and lies has been removed. And with internet and a lot of, I wouldn't say intellectual, but people that have great knowledge of what's going on really behind the scene. I'm not just talking Freemason, I'm talking the Rothschild, I'm talking about how the EU function. They start to reveal that information to the Yellow Vest because they do huge gatherings every week, and these guys come and start to inform the Yellow Vest about what's really happening and what happened these last 40 years. And now, of course, everybody's very upset because they realize, wait a minute, we were trusting the government to represent us and realize that all they did the last 40 years is literally to bankrupt France, take our sovereignty of the land, our history, our culture, and literally destroy it for one agenda, which is the EU agenda. Now, in 2015, the EU has literally sent to every country of the European Community, and France included in this case, a whole list of things that need to be done. And what Macron is doing right now, it's exactly what's on that list, which is increase the taxes, lower the retirement, increase the price of everything that's important, the like food, gas, electricity, water, everything, to make it pretty much impossible for people to live. Sell everything that is owned by France. For example, the National Lottery, the airport, the main airport in Paris. I mean, what else? The highways, to big companies, supposedly so France can have money to help the people. But we know that's not the case. So it's, I don't know, there is a name for a specific type of business. What they do, they go in a company is not doing great, they buy the company and then they fragment. Literally, they're selling the company bit by bit, department by department, just for gain. And they destroy a whole business, they destroy lives. They fired everybody and they make money. That's what they're doing with France. That's what they're doing with every country in Europe. So now the French people know that this is what's going on. Macron has no way of turning back. He cannot stop what he's doing. By the way, he said it. He will not stop anything of what he's doing. He will continue, he will go deeper, and he will go harder. So
then he will just elect himself back into office. How does that work? I mean,
well, 22 will be the next presidential election if he lasts till then. But obviously, he's definitely determined for the next 3 years to continue his program and go deeper. He literally receives his orders, and that's what people start to understand, the French government or any government in Europe have absolutely no authority on their country. All they do is receiving orders from the European government, which is not, by the way, the people there are not elected, by the way. So that's something people need to know. And they just, send these programs or agendas, and they say, all right, well, now you need to do this and this and this and this year. Otherwise, well, you're going to be in trouble. So they have no choice. They have to do it. Now, Macron needed to understand he's working literally as a Rothschild agent, very clear. He was raised, groomed by the Rothschild in the Rothschild Bank, and suddenly he ended up Minister of the Economy, of all the ministry possible, right? Economy. And after that, president. So, I mean, it's very clear for everybody who he's really representing, and definitely not the French people. So now he is in a very bad situation, because there is no way for him to go back and be like, okay, guys, I'm gonna lower the tax, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna stop this. He cannot. But at the same time, he cannot clearly say it. He cannot say it, because then if he says really that, guys, I don't give a damn about you, I'm gonna continue no matter what. I don't listen to you, Yellow West. That's gonna be bad too. So this is why he's pretending to give all these, the great debate to find solution and this and that. But all that is another way to disguise his real intentions, is to gain time to get as close as possible to the European election in May.
But he looks like a man that's out of touch with reality, and he seems very deluded about his level of authority and his ability to persuade people. Whatever magic that he might have had early on seems to have abandoned him, and now he's left with hollow words and emotionless speeches. And so, the cruelty is speaking for him, and everything that happens there is going to represent his actions. It will be replaced by everything that happens with the yellow vests. And like I said, Dionysus is behind it, and people have, probably don't fully understand this, but, there's always powers behind the power, and it becomes a game. And so there seems to be, and he's Apollyon, the one that, that is going to lose in the end anyhow, and that's the fake Apollo. He also is the fake Jupiter. But it's just a matter of time, and I'm waiting, and I know this is one of his hubs. He's got a few of them in Europe and also in the U.S. And so, like I said, there was the Leonard Crumb thing with all the fires in California, and causing problems wherever he goes, manipulating humanity in different ways. And it's just like I said, it's little by little he is losing power, because he wanted to do a lot more and a lot worse. But there are other powers that are around too. I mean, I was taking a look at France, and they have Asmodeus there, and people have their opinions about it, and it's in that Mary Magdalene Church in Rennes-le-Château. Is that the right way to say it?
Yep, perfect.
And it's kind of like a strange space, because I want to talk a little bit about the significance of religion. I won't say it's spirituality, I'll call it religion, because a religion, in our world right now has become the fabric of our politics, and almost a cultural addition to the way people view life. And so you touch upon it, and it becomes it's so sacred, not because that they hold it as true in their heart and spirituality, but it's almost like it's akin to their lineage. And so it becomes like this powerful. It's become this powerful force, and people literally have forgotten what they believe. Like recently I talked to Peter, the insider, about the Czech Republic, and we had a discussion because I had another friend who told me her father is from the same region. She goes, the reason why the people are the way they are is because they've had so many different nations control them that they forgot who they are. Even the food that they think is their food actually came from another country. And so, they kind of lost a sense of, who they are, and they did that deliberately. I think that's something else that they're trying to do in other European nations and help is to try to get people to forget who they are. And earlier times prior to this Christian, what we call Christianity, which has been molded and rewritten in many ways, like the original writings have been edited and constructed and made to fit into the government preference of the time. And so there's been a lot of editing going on, starting from the Latin Vulgate and down from the early ante-Nicene fathers and so forth. Throughout church history, you've seen the changes and also assimilating some of the earlier, they call them pagan belief systems, but the early belief systems of the people. Pagan is being referred to as negative, but I don't think that it should be saying that one is pagan over another. And I know it sounds like I'm going on a tangent here. The significance of the cathedral, the whole Yellow Vest movement has been going on for quite some time now. But when the cathedral burnt down, that's when all the press came in. That's when everyone started looking at France. And unfortunately, after all of, the people are weeping over a building, but, no one's really weeping over the people. And that's another thing to be very, very concerned about, has religion eclipsed compassion in humanity? Is that the only thing that they know to cry about or to be concerned about? Are artifacts and buildings? And I saw that some other things that were going on in France I think they're decapitating statues and things like that. And it has such a very big impact. It's almost like the people are crushed. And I think about, some of those movies that they had about the Trojan War. And one of the things that they do is they go in and they destroy the god that's supposed to be over that nation, saying that god is not powerful enough to protect you. So there's a lot of different things psychologically that's happening here. And when the French people see that the icons are being destroyed, I mean, it really has to do something to them emotionally. But on the other hand, you're seeing the entire world observing France only through a building, a cathedral. And fortunately, there's a handful of other people that care enough, even Americans that are walking around in Paris, putting themselves in danger to make sure that the French people are heard, because obviously, the media is not portraying what's going on, and most of the information is coming through YouTube or, alternate media sources. So why did I bring up the religion part? I felt like I needed to. I felt like, there's times when I bring stuff like this up and then I have someone come in and post, like, I don't know, maybe a couple thousand words of the Bible randomly.
You're
You know
right.
what I mean? And
Yep.
it's like, well, do you guys even know what you're doing? Why are you doing it? It's not even relevant at this point. First of all, the Bible is supposed to be about love and understanding and compassion toward people, and instead it's weaponized to destroy anyone that doesn't believe it, and to start war, and justifies wars and all sorts of other things. And we get on the Muslim group, and they do the same thing, So what's the difference? We need to wake up. We're being used by tactics derived by governments that are using religion to harness people's minds and thinking. And it should really, you need to wake up. I mean, those are belief systems that were written down. If you want, I mean, some of them have some of the statements have some very powerful truths. But if you're at a point where you can't be kind to or other humanity, and you can't have compassion for things that are going on, and all you can do is say, well, the reason why that's happened to you is because you deserve it, because you're a pagan, because you're evil or whatever, or you're condemning, you missed the whole point of it. And anything that might have been started from these belief systems were started out of love, or had a specific intent of goodness, and it's not coming out that way. And so people need to take another look at that, because I think, unfortunately, we are still being motivated by aggression through religion. And the whole topic of what's going on with Islam and what's going on with the conflict, you hear them bringing up that this was anti-Semitic, and this is anti-Islam, and it's probably none of the above. It's just called manipulation. Just call it manipulation. This is a hierarchy coming in and here telling people to hate each other, divide and conquer. We say it over and over and over again. I don't know if anyone's ever, if they're ever going to figure it out. And something needs to stop here, and stop weaponizing religions. And I know that some people get it already, so I'm probably preaching to the choir. There's a lot of people that listen to my channel, but there are some people that they will step in, and then they're on this whole righteous thing.
Yeah, and I mean, for me, I've never been big into religions, that's for sure. But all these religions for me are inorganic control system in disguise. That's really what it is.
Well, they're holding on to like some of those artifacts, like the crown of thorns. Do we even have any proof that that's the original crown of thorns?
No.
No. I mean, but that's treated like it's the most sacred of gold. But see, they need those artifacts because they make money.
Yep.
Remember, the churches are an industry, they're a business, and that don't have to pay taxes, which is fine. So it's a nonprofit, right? So there's lots of nonprofits right now. But it's not for the reason that people think.
No, and here, when you talk about Notre Dame and the fact that it happened at a very specific moment when Macron was supposed to do his speech, there is also other information that came out from different news outlets in France and in Europe. They were saying that, of course, all the churches in France are owned by the French state. So that means they are responsible for the renovation and to maintain them in good shape and so on. The problem is that the cathedral of Notre Dame is needed to be renovated, and the budget fund, the cost for that would be $100 million. So, of course, the state were fighting with the Vatican to see who was responsible for that. And it seems very strange that, they really had no solution on that one. And we talk about it last for 30 years, they're fighting for that. And suddenly, well, you know what? The best way to be able to have the money is
insurance.
Well, the thing is this, there is no insurance. That's the thing. There's no insurance. But when an event like that happens, suddenly out of nowhere, all the people in the world start to go into their pocket and send donations. This is why when Macron, the cathedral was barely, the fire was barely extinguished, that he made a little trip to Notre Dame and made a speech and directly said, well, I'm going to promise as the president, I'm going to rebuild the cathedral in 5 years. And everybody was laughing. Like, they took 200 years, man, to build that cathedral. How are you going to do that in 5 years? Unless, I don't know, you're going to build something ugly, or maybe you have another project in mind. And they discovered that there was a project that was done in the 80s where they were literally having different architecture companies, architects, to bring some project of what Notre Dame would be, and that whole island of l'Île Saint-Louis, which is connected to King Louis IX, King.
That's interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. And to renovate it, and some of these things, I mean, the cathedral was literally transformed into something different. They would have kept the main structure, but the whole roof and everything was completely different. So this is why the whole thing is completely. Nobody can believe really that it's an accident, because everything leads to the fact that I wouldn't say it was organized, but definitely it looked like it. All the main artifacts inside were moved 2 weeks ago to the City Hall of Paris and the Louvre. All the statues on the roof were removed 4 days before the fire. The day of the fire, normally the cathedral closed at 6:45 every day, right? They have a mass, and then, people get out, and by 6:45 they close the cathedral. That day, everyone, workers included, were asked to leave at 5:30 and exceptionally. And that's the hour between 5:30 and 6:30 that the fire started. Now, the architect of Notre Dame till 2010 was on the news, and he was saying, well, they were questioning him, is it possible, because we call that the forest, it's full of wood there, so is it possible, like the government says, while the fire was still burning, every news in the world had the same information. It is an accident due to renovation. How the heck do they know? At least, do an investigation, wait a week or two, and come up with some conclusion. That would be a little bit more logic, right? No, everybody, even in the US, it was burning. They already had the same narrative, all of them. So that is one thing that most of the people in France were like, that's weird. So we cannot talk about the fact that, because, for example, Fox News, I think I talked about that in the last report, but Fox News were interviewing a member of the French government, someone that obviously knows about his own country, right? And the guy was saying, well, it's very strange because 875 churches have been, how you call that, desacralized. Desacralized, is that an English word? Desacralized?
Secularized?
No.
Circulated?
No. I think my word is wrong. I wouldn't say destroyed, but people went in, destroyed the church, burned the church. I mean, there is a lot of weird events that happened in 875 churches within a year, and 10 within a week, just in France. And when the guy was explaining that, he was shot directly, saying, oh, that's a conspiracy, you are saying stuff, you have no fact. It was like, excuse me, I know what I'm talking about. I mean,
Are you talking about that priest that commented on how people were doing stuff to the church, and then he got cut off by the newscaster? Or
there is a priest on one hand that did that, and then there is a member of the government. So yeah. It was very clear that the narrative
and they called it. Yeah, they called it a conspiracy theory, or just like you don't have any proof of that, and it's like, wait a minute, what?
You
Yeah,
don't
I
have
do.
It's like I do, and two, you guys have no proof that it's an accident due to renovation because the church is still burning as you speak. So no investigation have been able to be done yet. So I mean, who is talking about conspiracy here? I mean, seriously, this is a joke. So also, it has been.
I mean, those people should be, not. I mean, the newscasters that do stuff like that. I mean, really, it's total disinformation. They're the ones that are providing disinformation.
Oh yeah, no, but they had the architect for 10 years. The guy was a master architect that was pretty much in charge of all the renovation of Notre Dame, right? So he was explaining, listen, when you deal with a project like Notre Dame, this is not like dealing with a regular building. Already in France, when you do renovation for any type of building, the standards of security when it comes to do that type of work, when you do, electrical work and so on, I mean, the security is higher than anything you can imagine. Now, when you talk to a building like this of, 850 years, you have no idea. There is no electrical wires into the roof. Everything is done in a way that, I mean, it's above and beyond anything you can imagine. He was saying these timbers are 850 years old. It's impossible to burn them. Take a log of oak of 30 years and try to burn it. And it was funny, there were some guys on YouTube, they were doing the test. They took a big timber of oak of 35 years old, and they tried to burn it, like the news was saying, with a spark, with a little piece of cloth that maybe took fire, with gas, with all kind of techniques, going from the smallest to the biggest. And after 5 hours, that thing was still not burning. And they said the only way it could burn is if you drill in there and put a certain type of chemical and you let it burn from within. But it's so hot but even then it will take pretty much a day or two before it catch fire the way it did there in 20 minutes.
Yeah.
So when he started explaining all that information, the guy was like, the newscaster was like, okay, well, what are you saying? He says, all I'm saying is this: it is not possible that church caught fire by accident. That's all I'm saying. It's impossible. Right. 850 years, it's like steel. Literally, that wood is steel. And on the second thing, it says the alarm systems are so advanced and sophisticated. There are so many layers of alarms. There are 2 people there at all time. I mean, it's impossible. And suddenly, the alarm system was defective.
And how many wars did that building get through?
Oh my God! I mean, Paris burned several times, and that church never burned. It went through the French Revolution, to all the different revolution in the 1800s in France, First World War, Second World War. Even the Nazis didn't dare to touch it.
Right. So what does that say about Macron then?
Exactly, right?
So anything Macron touches, he destroys.
Yeah, but I mean, come on. It's built on his temple, all right? Before it was a pagan temple to Apollo. So it has the right to do whatever it wants.
Yeah, Jupiter.
Yeah, Jupiter. Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
I mean,
it's not his. Joke. And even though that, it's kind of weird that the Romans, were everywhere, and it still doesn't represent him. He was never Jupiter. So but no, he's very good at destroying things. And
this is why
he's even sabotaging his own life. I mean, I've never seen anyone in such a strange situation.
I'm telling you, if the Yellow Vest succeed, there is already one retired general that's doing. I mean, that's definitely very active in explaining to the French people really what's going on, and the fact that he is gathering a lot of information where he's trying to. He went in September to arrest Macron. He's on in the Palais de l'Élysée, which is like you would say the White House over there. It's in the middle of Paris, but the police stopped him.
Yeah.
So it says
they should do a massive citizens arrest on
Oh
him.
yeah. Oh yeah, and this is why they have all. I mean, the security around the palace where he's living is intense. There is no way a yellow vest can come a mile close to that place.
But just think about his life at this point. I mean, is he going to be able to enjoy his life at all?
Oh, no.
In his own nation,
no.
He has ruined it. He's more likely and better off to go and live in some other nation at this point.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean,
and I'm not saying by force. It's just he's ruined himself. You can't recover anything like that at this point.
He can go anywhere without hundreds of people insulting him, and I mean, and then he's pretty much crying in the car because he doesn't understand why people don't like him. He's so he wants people to love him. He's like a retarded teenager that's psychopath and narcissist. Needs people to love him. I'm sorry, I'm not going to make friends here, but I don't care. That's the truth.
Yeah. He's not very realistic about his what he's doing. He completely seems to be oblivious. That's the part that's strange.
It's disconnected from reality.
Yeah.
I mean, it's living in another world. Well,
you see that with tyrannical rulers. I mean, they seem to have some kind of like dysfunction from their earlier childhood, which creates this gap and prevents them from actually seeing the truth of how they're impacting and the narcissism of their needs, demanding that, or having the perception that the entire world evolves around them. And so, they just can't imagine anything else. But
no,
I mean, it's not just I mean, we've probably really said quite a bit about Macron in this case, and I don't want to just be getting into bashing Macron, even though we could. I don't know.
I know.
I know this is a very, very serious situation because it does set a precedent or a standard for what's going on in the rest of the world and even the EU. And we want it all to go well for all the nations around there. And hopefully no one else, no other ruler is going to be so foolish as to oppress their people like that. It seems like some of the other nations are pulling away from Macron, and that's a good thing.
Yes.
I haven't looked into the update of what's going on over in England regarding Brexit because I've been traveling. So,
well, the last thing I've checked about Britain, it seems that what's his name, Farage, which is the one that literally, had a party, independent party in England that promoted the Brexit, is back into politics, and in 1 week, I mean, pretty much everyone is behind him again. So obviously they're pushing for that Brexit very hard. And the country has never been so well since they voted for the Brexit. I mean, the economy is booming, the salaries are increasing, the business is incredible, the unemployment has never been as low as this. I mean, that is something that the EU are very afraid that the other countries hear really about what's going on. They feel they're way better economically since they try to get out of the EU.
I think the UK can see the writing on the wall a little bit better. They have a better perspective and don't allow themselves to become very much the pawn. And I think typically in the past, France hasn't done that either. But for some reason, Macron just he really gave away the whole thing. You know, he didn't have any integrity, and any concern or any protection levels over the nation itself. It was just became a big game or something. So, but we see that, you know, there's contrast in the way of managing and dealing with things, and we'd like to see that, you know, that all the other nations follow suit in their own way. You know, kind of be able to observe and learn from this situation, that humanity needs to be treated in a certain way, or else there's going to be repercussions, because there's still a will, there's a desire in the soul to thrive. And in my heart, in my prayers, I'm sending energy to them and help them to be strong throughout this, and help keep them protected, and even those older women and men and young kids and those, you know, those workers, people that are the life and blood of the nation, that they're protected in this process, and they're trying to do peaceful protests.
Yes.
And also to kind of help those black blocs to wake up and see that they're also being used as pawns, and not to play the game, and not to destroy the cities, because people work really hard to build up these cities, and it's just going to be even more of a financial burden on everyone. It's not right to do that to other people's nations, and it's not right to do that to other people's cities and neighborhoods. And, you know, you see that, you know, something like that was happening in the U.S., and I can say this, that the first thing that would happen was that people would be pillaging. You know, they you know, start destroying the cities, and they just go in and start taking things. And
that's what they do. Yeah, that's what they
yeah,
do.
Which is sad, because who are they taking from? Not from the ones that are causing the problems, but from, you know, independent business owners. So the people that are involved in some of these, you know, these rebels, these people that they're, you know, they're protesting or whatever, you know, anti-establishment. You know, you really need to think about who you're harming in the process. Don't harm innocent people, or else you're completely, you know, you're actually part of the very system that's oppressing people. Because if someone wakes up the next morning and their business is gone, you just hurt and harmed another independent business owner. And so you have to be mindful of that. You're responsible for that. And, you know, it's one thing to be angry, but there's a right and a wrong way to do things. And I don't know who's teaching people to do this type of stuff, but it's really a horrible thing. I don't know how you can live with yourself harming innocent people in the process of thinking that you're making a statement. And, I mean, those that are getting paid off to do this type of stuff, well, you know...
yeah, no, yeah.
I have some choice words for you.
Yeah, no, absolutely, and I completely agree with you, Jess. I mean, when I see all these protests every week after week after week, it breaks your heart, because I can see truly what's going on here. It's a war against humanity that's happening here, and most of the people, they don't want power on others. These people just want to have the right to live well. They're not jealous of people that are rich. You know, if they're rich and they you know, they had a good business, why not? It's all good, but we need to be fair and share equally. I mean, in some proportion, of the wealth of the country. And we are not. We love a country. We work with the blood and sweat of France, not the banks, the people. That's the real blood of France, not the cathedral, which is supposed to be the heart of France. No, the heart of France are the French people.
That's right. That's right.
That's all it is. Without the people, there's nothing. So they've literally 2,000 years of history. This is even more than that, but I mean mainly 2,000 years of history to get to that point, and people just don't want to see everything being erased like that, like if it never existed, without having to have a say. I mean, it's just unacceptable.
I've heard. I was reading some articles about France, and how that people were actually going into Paris and, you know, hearing that this is a city for lovers, and and it wasn't turning out for them in that way. And I guess that Japan had a hotline for those people that from Japan that visited there, and were almost depressed that they didn't have that experience. And of course now, with all the Elevest stuff going on, they're going to probably feel less of that kind of sentiment. But
sure.
But what the romance and the beauty of France was not, maybe at one time it was very highly recognized there in Paris before it became this probably more materialized and but if you travel through the country, because I've been through the countryside, you would see that all this beautiful romance, all that stuff is still there. It's still there. It is because of the simplicity of life that still exists in many parts of France. And, people enjoy their food and the simple things and the nature. And it's absolutely breathtaking driving through the nation. France is amazing because of the structures and so forth. But if you travel through the countryside, you'll see that's an absolutely beautiful country. And it's a wine country, and they have, all sorts of other things that are growing, just beautiful fields and quaint villages and so forth. Yeah, it's gorgeous.
I always tell people, most of the American I meet, they say, "Oh, I went to France," and I say, "Oh, great. So where have you been?" "Oh, I went to Paris and Nice." I said, "But that's not France. Everything in between and around, that's France."
Yeah.
Now, mind you, is Paris beautiful? Sure, but the Paris we see that's beautiful is from the 1900s.
Right.
That was built literally, all these boulevards and these beautiful, buildings was from pretty much most of these boulevards from the 1800s, 1700s, and then you have a few buildings that are way older than that, but mostly is 1800s. It's pretty much after mud flood, or some of them before mud flood, like the Arc of Triomphe and the cathedral, definitely before mud flood. But all I think it's an illusion, that whole Paris, the city of love. Yeah, because you see all these gold. I mean, there is gold on a lot of buildings, all these beautiful lights, and you travel in taxi in there. You're like, wow, it's really like, it's gorgeous, but it's an illusion. The real beauty for me is take your car and drive south or east or west from Paris. You will see something that for me is breathtaking, and the beauty, the love, it's truly in the heart of the people that are
right.
living what we call deep France. They're very nice people mostly. They're proud of their country, proud of the food, of all the produce they have that are so amazing, from the bread, the cheese, I mean everything. Now when we talk about the sightseeing, you drive an hour, it's a different world. I mean, it is absolutely unbelievable.
All the villages are all unique and different, and you see people walking around with their baguettes of bread and then
you see the real historical buildings are rough. I mean, this is what was the real beauty. There was a city I was going on vacation for pretty much 25 years when I was a kid, and then a little later. It's where you have the story of D'Artagnan and the Musketeers, right? That happened supposedly. So you see all the streets are still from that era, all the buildings, all the houses. I mean, it's breathtaking. There's so much history everywhere. You turn a corner and boom, there you go. Something from the 15th century, 14th century, 13th century, 9th century. It's amazing.
They want to take that, but they want to take this away. They want to take, I mean, it was the same thing with California, all the beautiful land that was burnt down.
Yeah.
And, they just keep wanting to take the beauty of the earth that is very, very special. I mean, you don't ever see these rundown urban cities getting destroyed.
No.
Never. No.
And you know what? It reminds me for the listeners, if they can go to the last transmission of Rodin, where it has that amazing. It's the most beautiful poem. Literally, it's a nod of love for this planet. And then you realize that it's not the buildings that make the beauty of this planet. It's not all these, fancy homes and church and this and that. It's the land, it's the trees, the rivers that are literally the veins of each of this country that brings life in every part of France, and these people that literally for centuries have worked so hard with their sweat and blood to and love to to literally participate to the beauty of this country. I mean, for me, it's hard for me to explain that in English. I would be able to explain that in French a little bit better.
There's village after village, city after city. There's so many different things about that nation. I can see why they want to destroy it.
Yeah.
There's just a feel. There's a lot, like you said. There's a lot of heart and there's a lot of love there, and each nation has its own unique feeling.
Yeah.
I've been to many of the different countries, and it's just it has its own personality. It's like a living, breathing micro world. That's the only way I can express it, because you really feel transported in each place, in each expression, and they're trying to, like the mud flood, trying to get people to forget what it is, trying to bring in something just to tear up what beauty that there was. I mean, they never tear up, like I said, the rundown places. They leave those. They leave it completely alone. If you don't want to be bothered, find the worst, like the highest crime rate and the worst place, and nobody's going to move there. They're not looking to destroy that. It's already done.
Yeah, and they pretty much want the people to move there from the country, to move into Paris, to move into the city, so they can control them easier. It's easier to control them.
Yeah, the cities, the surveillance cities that
all
they're
the
trying,
villages,
micromanaging humans, like we're all numbers and cattle. That was their intention for China. That's all those cities that they're sitting there waiting, and well, there's just, they continue to do stuff, and we continue to hold the space. I think, I don't know if there's anything else that you wanted to discuss, Chris.
No, at this point, I think it's good for tonight. There will be definitely more information in the next weeks to come, and if there is anything, I will let you know. Anything of importance, of course. But right now, just would like all the listeners to have the manifest the highest potential for, and not just France and the French people. It's pretty much for every country in Europe and
in the world. Yeah, for this point,
in the world.
All those that have been, playing chess with our world, we want to take the game away.
This planet belongs to the humans, and all we're doing right now is to clear layer by layer all this inorganic control system that long time ago came here and use this planet for their playground, take, destroy, and it's enough of that.
Right.
They will not win, that's for sure.
No, as long, the more people that hold that highest intention, the more people that are in agreement that they want to see that humans will thrive, and that it will be done in a way that there won't be wars, there won't be anything, that people just raising their consciousness and kind of move out of this state of being, and helping people to further wake up.
And I remember something Rodin said in one of the transmissions, that this planet has a divine purpose in the galaxy. And if the planet, this beautiful planet, that's planet Earth, have a divine purpose in the galaxy, that means a human too. And this is why the war is on the humans, because I have a feeling there is such a potential in humanity, a divine potential. I think we haven't discovered really what the real potential is, really, but obviously some of these factions know it. This is why they come here to harvest whatever they can. It's like a Walmart for them, you know?
Yeah, and if we don't wake up, it just further prolongs the process.
Yeah.
Whereas if we start to open our eyes to what is actually going on, then we begin to awaken and see through all of this, and begin to join the galactic community as an equal. This was the intention.
Yes, I love that idea.
Yeah, and of course, the bullies want us to be subservient, so that's not going to happen.
No.
Nope.
That's for sure. So this is why we will have more information next time we talk. But step by step, we're moving in the right direction. I mean, so sometimes it's hard to start out to see it, I guess, when listener might listen to what we're talking about here. But even if it sounds, hard sometimes to hear, it's important to hear the truth and to be able to remove all these layers of illusion, deceptions, and lies that, we might have in ourselves, all these filters.
Right.
And so
you
can see the divine truth within yourself.
And also always remember, it's very easy. I had a discussion with someone today, and they said, well, it's hard. Sometimes we can't see through the programs and the implants and all this other stuff that happens to us because it comes in so subtly. It could easily be, through watching television or interacting with a certain individual that is, kind of send that monarch program through, and before you know it, you have, or there's abductions. A lot of people have been abducted, and you don't really know what's going on, and so you're kind of listening and you're skeptical and you're not really sure, and it might not just be your logical mind that's blocking you from seeing through some of this stuff, but actually a program. And I just encourage people, because someone said to me today, well, you're not 100% immune either, and I agree. I said, I don't think there's anyone on this planet that's immune to any type of program, so we need to be diligent and regularly asked to shut down, delete, and uninstall any and all programs that might be running within our minds that's preventing us from seeing through the veil, seeing through the truth of what's around us. And I don't have any ego in this, and I'm encouraging people to not have any ego. If you get to a point where you think you know it all, or that you're 100% confident in everything, then you're more at risk than those that are willing to say, I think I need to make sure that I'm clear and that I'm not being manipulated or controlled in any way or persuaded through my thinking by something else, and that I'm always holding on through sovereignty, a divine right of belief, and just divine right of protection, to freedom to think on my own without any type of manipulation. And so you're always going to want to do that clearing for yourself regularly to make sure, because some of the stuff is, it's like it's coming in from really weird, very, very weird directions. And I've even had people say they go to the grocery store and connect to somebody, and then all of a sudden, they just feel weird afterwards, and having to kind of break ties or whatever, just basic stuff of people making eye contact, and and it just feels like there was a transfer of information. So I mean, this sounds like it's really weird, paranoid, whatever you can call it, whatever you want, but try it out for yourself. If something doesn't feel right, don't ignore it, and that's the first way they start putting you back to sleep. Even though that you're awake, they can still do it. They want everyone to just not be free thinkers, and it's not always going to be like this. It's just you have to be diligent now. They're really coming in full force, and I've heard a lot of different stories with different clients that have come in, and if people feel like you want to do a private session with me, just let me know, and we can scan through and take a look and see if there's anything that needs to be removed or shut down. But these are challenging times, but I think it's doable. If we work together, we can see things happen. I think that France would have been in an even worse state right now if it's possible. But yes, I think with the intentions of all the people and people keeping an eye out, it's making them hesitant to harm and do terrible things to the people at this point. I think that there was, it's just like if you're hidden and you're getting away with something, sometimes there's like this beast within, or a beast that attaches in some ways. It kind of feeds off the pain and sorrows of humans. So you just kind of want to make sure that, with a watchful eye, we know what's going on, and that we're sending protection to people that are in these situations that are just, fighting for not just freedom, but for also the divine right of existence on this planet, and being able to support themselves and so forth, and support their families.
Oh, yes. I like that.
Yeah.
I couldn't have said it better.
Yeah, and I know that
when you explain that.
There's probably a lot of, people say, well, geez, this is not the only nation that's struggled. This country's struggled, that country, and look, what about those poor people in Syria? And, and I agree. I don't think any group should suffer in any way, but it just so happens that I feel particularly directed to work with the situation in France, and even if it's just, for people to understand how to use your energy to assist others. And it can be applied to any group that you feel needs assistance.
Yeah, and not fall in the game that right now they're trying to push, in France or in other countries, that, it's trying to push a war between Christian and Muslims. Because, of course, on one hand, the Muslim mosques that are, having problems, and then have the churches, and of course, they try to push that war on each other. And please, don't fall for that. Don't fall for that.
Yeah. Yeah, and so I think that people, like I said, starting to wake up a bit, and some have already been awakened for a long time, and I appreciate it, because those are the people that usually email me. Say, yeah, but we knew this, and that, and I appreciate that too. But we're talking to a spectrum of people here, so some of them this is brand new. Others that have been listening for a long time to not just my stuff, but some people have more knowledge than I have in certain areas, and I think that's great too. So share the knowledge, make some comments.
Yeah, thank you, by the way, for all the great comments that we had in the past shows. It was very, very nice to read them.
Yeah, it's very positive.
Very positive, and I love it.
Yeah, and even, if a person doesn't understand or disagrees, or, there's a way to say it, and I appreciate that too. Like I said, no one has to be 100% right. But, there's levels of ways that things are said that makes a difference. So, but I respect everyone's opinion, and I appreciate your support in what we're doing. So, with that said, I'm going to say thanks, Chris. Thanks so much for your time and energy, research, and so forth. Let's continue keeping an eye out, and report back to me next time.
Sure. No, it's my pleasure. I wish you a wonderful night, as well as to all the listeners, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye. Au revoir.
Au revoir. Have a good night, everyone.
You have been listening to Androna Talks Radio. Join us on YouTube channel Jessica Ariel Morocco, and visit her website at www.readingsbyariel.com.